Welcome to the Consummate Athlete Podcast, where we explore what it means to be a well-rounded, happy, goal-crushing athlete. Every week, myself, sports journalist Molly Herford, and cycling coach and kinesiologist Peter Glassford interview experts and chat through all of your training questions. We're excited to have you along for the ride. Hello. Welcome back to the Consummate Athlete Podcast, Desert Trails RV Park edition.
Okay, I thought maybe like sweaty edition, but not for anything sexy. It's more because there's a record heat wave that some of the listeners may be experiencing across much of the southern U.S.
You know what? Shockingly unsexy is how I would describe this heat wave.
But we put ourselves here by choice. So, we've been training and sort of existing in this really hot environment out near Tucson, Arizona, which has been good training, but definitely a lot of exposure to warm temperatures. I guess today we're talking about sort of these subjective measures, these other things that are a bit extra to maybe the squiggly lines in a training file. A lot of people maybe are coming off of indoors where they've been really focused on power or cadence or heart rate.
Well, and had a very specific setup, right? Like there was no headwind. They had the cooling stuff all in place. You've had all of this stuff so dialed in for the last few months.
Well, and not variable, right?
Yeah.
And then this is always like, what is a perfect training environment? And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a training environment that doesn't vary. You actually do want variables and some of these other stressors. But what I was going to say is that these are some of these, you could say, subjective measures in that it felt really hard to go out and do the same 5 miles or 5Ks that I would usually do, say, for running because it's so hot and because we're so hot throughout the day. So these are some of the things that might be captured in comments in something like Training Peaks or whatever software someone might use, but then aren't really aggregated or used a lot. A lot of times these things get left by the wayside. And so our guests today, Fabi and Bruna Maia, are startup, what do we call these people? Founders? No, that's not what we're looking for. What are you looking for?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay, startup founders, of Augo, which is an app that we're sort of trialing with some of the athletes at Consummate Athlete. And it's sort of like I think their main mission, I was thinking about this, was it is to sort of replace a lot of coaches will use email and WhatsApp and iMessage and also Training Peaks comments, and then also like something else. And then you end up with these things getting lost over time. You might miss some of the trends in things like soreness or fatigue or just something that an athlete said. So that's what their app Augo is trying to solve.
And yes, admittedly, we are both very nervous about AI.
Well, I didn't even say.
Well, yeah. We should back up. Augo is an AI-powered app. And I think, both of us, given the industries we're in, are naturally a little nervous about AI and a little skeptical of what it can do. So what we really like about it is that Fabi and Bruna they're both athletes themselves, and we talk a lot about their athletic careers and stuff. So even if you're not interested in AI, this is still a really fun episode. But also, they're coaches. So they're not trying, they don't go into it with sort of this idea that I think some companies will say that AI is capable of replacing human interaction with a coach. Rather, they were actually looking for ways to improve the human side of the interaction with the coach and athlete, which I really liked.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's really just to augment the conversation. It's not that it's going to chat to the athlete for the coach. The coach still has to do the actual communication. It might just resurface something that like, hey, did you notice that Molly's been really, really hot? Not just she's been hot for a long time, but her temperature, the temperature, ambient temperature, she's been noting like feeling fatigued on runs. Maybe she needs a little extra rest or something like that, right? So that would be the hope with an app like this. So it's exciting. With any startup, you never know how it's going to go, but I think they're two great people, two really interesting people, and I think some really cool things for busy people as well. We love these busy people who are founders. They're working, they're training, they're doing Ironman, and then any startup business is just a lot of time. So, so a really fun chat.
Yeah, and before we get into it, let's talk about another startup that we were in on the ground floor with, our good friends over at Payable. So Payable is the Google Forms add-on that lets you take payments in Google Forms. So whether you're collecting money for Girl Scout cookies, club registration, jersey orders, t-shirt orders, literally whatever you would be wanting to collect money for, rather than having to set up a whole website to deal with it, you can just make a Google form and boom, you're collecting money in under 10 minutes.
That's right. Yeah, and it really minimizes the need for other logins or apps or anything like that and keeps it simple, especially for these more one-off or less frequent things that you're maybe doing as a volunteer or something like that.
Exactly. So you can find our favorite templates and literally get started in minutes over at payableapps.com/athlete. And we'll include a link to that in the show notes. And if you've been using it, by the way, definitely send us a message and let us know what you've been using it for. We would love to know. All right, without further ado, let's get into this conversation with Fabi and Bruna. Enjoy. Bruna, Fabi, welcome to the Consummate Athlete podcast. We are so excited to get to talk to you two again.
And when you say again, you mean because we were on their
I
podcast.
do.
That's right. And so today we were hoping that you could introduce us both to your new app that is out now. People can get it. We're excited. This is Augo. So do you want to just give us a brief hi, my name is, and what you're up to as far as sport and in life and your work?
Absolutely. Shall I start? Cool. Okay. So, yes, very happy to be on your podcast as well. It's really nice to be interviewed for once. So, appreciate the invite. My name is Bruna. I am a really passionate runner, even though my background is in tennis, but that's a story for another time. And I'm also in tech. So, Fabi and I are the co-founders of Algo, which I'm hoping I can tell you all about in a second.
And I'm also super excited to be on the podcast on the other side this time. And about me, so I'm Fabi. I'm the other co-founder of Augo. I co-founded the company with Bruna already almost a year ago. And yeah, I'm Swiss. I'm super passionate about triathlon. I have a background in business, went to business school, but then also worked in tech before I started Augo. That's it about me.
I love it. I love it. And okay, actually, Bruna, we were going to bring up the tennis because we were so curious if you still play, what that transition was like. I mean, this is the consummate athlete, so we are fans of this like all around athleticism. And I'm also just jealous of anyone that can play a ball sport. Peter keeps saying I'm the worst ping pong player he's ever seen in his life, which is a little offensive, honestly. Accurate, but offensive.
Funny. I'm a very good ping pong player.
I'm sure, yeah. So this is one thing we are never going to do when we do it finally get to hang out with each
There you
other.
go.
There will be no,
Okay, we have a mixed doubles.
absolutely not.
We could just run with each other. Yeah, tennis. I play rarely, to be honest. I played a lot when I was young. So from like ages 9 to 21, I was really high level player, playing 5, 6 times a week, traveling every other weekend for tournaments and stuff. That's how I ended up studying in the States, which I did my undergrad at. You get recruited, la la la. But I was very young and it was very stressful. So at some point I burned out and I just wanted a break. And that's really when I picked up running because I stopped playing tennis and then I saw, wow, I have, I don't know, like 30 more hours in my week. What should I do with all this time? So I filled it up with running and never looked back.
So what is your run distance now? What's your ideal run distance anyway?
Marathon. Marathon is my favorite.
Too hard. Far too hard.
Ah, you run much longer.
Exactly. Much easier, much longer. That's the key there. Okay, and the other question I had is because both of you are in sports that involve running, do you two train together or how does that work? Because when we were on your podcast, we talked about how we absolutely do not train together. But I'm
Yeah.
curious, same question.
So yeah, actually today, funnily enough, we were running together, so we both did a run together, but it varies a bit, sometimes we do, I mean, Bruna's running only and I do swim bike run. So mostly I do those things without her. But yeah, sometimes we do run together, but we have our phases. Yeah, I think yeah, no, we don't train that much together
No,
actually.
not that much. I guess I'm
Well,
doing more trails now, and it's just different, right? And then you all have your
And then we have our
intensities and your
different,
training
yeah,
plan.
and our training. So it's only if it really happens to work. Sometimes we Swift next to each other in our Swift group, but then we're not even talking to each other. We're just next to each other doing our
yeah.
own. And
Yeah, I'm
that's
probably just annoyed by the other person's breathing and like, why are you moving like this?
I know that's how I feel.
Yeah, yesterday Molly was doing squats while I was trying to ride on the indoor trainer, and I was just like, "You're gonna hit me with the barbell." And
Yeah, it was not like distracting in like a sexy sense. It was just distracting and like I can like feel his eyes like checking my form and being really judgmental of it. So it is not enjoyable. Well, and you two also work together, so I feel like you probably have similar to us where it's like you spend all of your other time working together and doing everything else. Like training is probably like it's really like the one of the few times you're not together.
That's actually very true. I feel like training is for us a bit of our me time. So it's less social. It's more like I need a break from you and
I need
from
a break
work.
from everyone. Yeah.
yeah, and I always say
Yeah.
like it's just to get new stories. Like you gotta get something so that you can tell. Oh, yeah, today I saw this thing. Let me tell you
Yeah.
about it. You didn't see
Yeah,
it.
you mentioned this.
Exactly.
Yeah. I saw sunshine today.
I mean,
Yeah.
mostly we talk about work anyway, so less about training these days.
Right.
But yeah, we see each other a lot. I think it's really when we see fr friends, separately, then we don't see each other. It's nice though, then doing stuff separately and then seeing each other and having something to chat about. You're completely right.
Gotcha. Now, Fabi, you have learned to swim. You're a triathlete now, but you learned to swim as an adult. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was 29, 30, so quite late. And I couldn't swim 25 meters. It was quite hilarious. I didn't know how to breathe underwater. I mean, I could do the chest swim in the pool, but I couldn't really do the freestyle. So yeah, it was a huge learning curve to go from basically not being able to swim to doing a full Ironman distance. But yeah, I just came from a swim now, so my hair is still wet. Now I'm swimming with a local swim club here in Zurich. They're all really good swimmers, and I really enjoy it. I really like the sport.
If you were starting again, was there something like in particular that you were like that you found effective that like if you were starting all over again, you'd go immediately to doing? Like it was Master Swim a big part of that? Like what do you think was like the most or one of the most effective things that got you sort of swimming at that level?
I think the most important thing in the beginning, we were living in Amsterdam back then, was having a coach in person at the pool deck that looked at my form and told me what I do wrong. And really, I went there every week to see him, and it really helped me to accelerate my improvement. That helped a lot. And then, yeah, having a community, swimming with other people, that really helps because it's always like what I don't like is the way to the pool and the thinking of going into the cold water. But once I'm in the water, I love it so much because also you cannot listen to music. I mean, now you can with the new headphones and everything, but you cannot listen to music. You're just in your head, and it's we're getting into this flow state, and that's really what I like. But yeah, definitely if somebody's starting out, get a human coach to look at you at your swim form. That helps a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely correct. Like the technique is so important, and I think maybe especially triathletes or anyone coming from like biking, maybe especially like wants to like brute force, just like I can build my engine a lot, but swimming is so technique that it's just you need
It's
that, right?
absolutely, yeah.
It's so I'm still sucking at the backstroke, for example. Like today we did backstroke. Always when we do butterfly or backstroke, I'm like so slow, and I'm like I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
Eat it. Fine.
And that's interesting. So that's like you've actually moved beyond like I guess what you have to do for Ironman. Like that would be maybe like survival skill for Ironman days, but you wouldn't generally use those. So is that just like continued development of your swimming, or how do you see those other strokes in terms of Ironman?
I actually heard from lots of people that this helps to improve your overall swimming. So I guess it's what you like, a type of cross training within swimming, maybe,
Mm.
but really doing different strokes, and that's how you also improve overall, getting better feel for the water, etc. So I do always like now do butterfly, backstroke, breast, all of the different strokes, just
Yeah.
to yeah, get some different stimulus. So I think it really helps.
Yeah, it's like variety. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, it's really cool.
Now we're gonna kind of shift into talking about the app and like that all that kind of stuff. But I'm curious, like what does racing look like for both of you now, especially with how busy you are with getting this app launched and it's out and all of that. So how do you think about like the racing and the work? Because this is where I always kind of I'm like, which one is more important to me? Racing should still be important, but like book launches kind of take precedence. I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for us, for me, but I think I speak for the both of us, training is super important and it's not, we're doing this because we love sport and we launched this app because we feel connected to the sport. So we don't want to now become workaholics and don't be able to work out anymore. So for us, it's really important to still make space for us to work out and also, clear our minds and having ideas on the run, right? That's the best way to get to think about the problem. So we still work out a lot. I'm training now. I'm gonna do a half Ironman in a few weeks. Um, and right now it's not my priority, so I do skip quite some stuff, especially before the launch I did, and now post launch it's a bit more calm, but I still, train a lot. And later in the year, I do go to the World Champs for half Ironman, and there I'm probably gonna be more focusing on the race than I do now. So I think it always shifts, but both is very important for us, and it just comes in phases, I would say. I don't know what you think, Bruna.
Yeah, I think indeed, I think maybe we said this at the beginning of the podcast. I don't remember if it was already recording, but we basically just train and work at this point. It's one, I feel like this, you cannot do train, work, like startup life plus a lot of social life. So for sure, on my side, my social life is lacking a little bit, but I hope it'll come also in waves, and sometimes we'll have a little more social, a little bit less work. So far, not so much.
Absolutely. It's funny. I find like training is easy, but getting excited about racing for me is actually like the hard part when we have so much like going on with the work stuff. But I might just have like start
Well,
line
and
panic.
these launches are probably similar, right? Like it's on a certain day, there's a performance required, there's nerves, and will
Hmm.
people like will it go well, So
Hmm.
yeah, there's probably only so much room. But I love that both of you sort of said like there's almost like a shifting, you don't eliminate it, but maybe yeah, you drop a couple sessions or have to modify a couple sessions and you're not so tied to the outcome of this race, but then another time in the year maybe there'll be more bandwidth, more energy for that for the race, another race.
Yeah, indeed. I think like anything in life, like just trying to balance your priorities, they are not always going to be the same. And I think it's not realistic to have this kind of fixed list of priorities. It just shifts, depends on what's being
Yeah.
required. But I'm personally very excited because I'm gonna race for the first time in 3 years
Oh,
in
Ooh.
5 weeks.
okay.
So I cannot wait.
And is
Um,
that trail or is that going to be like a road marathon?
it's gonna be trail.
Okay, you've come over to the dark side.
I did. I
Okay.
did. Trail marathon. I'm really looking forward to it. Training has been going really well, so can't wait
Excellent.
to be back.
Excellent. Now, we sort of were talking around this, so I think this is our great segue here over to Ago and the problems you're trying to solve and why you're making this app. But when I'm coaching, and why I sort of found you all through Marco Altini, who I found for actually for similar reasons, was this idea of like, can we pull together some of this data that we collect? Can I learn more about the actual goings on of the athletes that I work with? Are they having a very stressful week at work? Have the kids not been sleeping? Have they been trying a new diet? All these things that are separate from me looking at wattage, squiggly lines on a screen that say like 200 watts. And so the problem I've had as a coach that I think you both are trying to solve and that you were sort of talking around with this launching of this app personally is how do we as athletes and as coaches communicate this big holistic messy package that is a human and who's trying to perform in different ways. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Like what was the problem you had in your as an athlete, as a coach, that Ago is trying to solve?
Yeah, really, really good way to see it, by the way. It's really about having a look at this holistic athlete. That's exactly what we're standing for. So the problem we've seen on both sides, I think we forgot to mention that. Oops, both Fabi and I coach. So I coach running and she coaches triathlon. So I think one of the big problems was realizing that the apps out there today don't put any focus whatsoever on qualitative feedback from athletes. And so, on Training Peaks, it's like an empty box that an athlete has to go in and be like, okay, well, I should be wise enough to know what I should share. And what happened, like from my coaching point of view, I've seen very inconsistent feedback. It really depends on the person. Like some people will send a little bit more, some people never send anything. But the biggest problem for me was hearing about injuries when they were too late and figuring out, wait, why couldn't I have heard about this, weeks or even months ago? And you realize that like there's no consistent collection of this information, which is so important for endurance sports. And so what we're doing with Algo is really focusing on collecting qualitative feedback from athletes. After every session, there are questions that the coach can select and the athlete will answer. It's like we're really focusing on UX, and so it's really easy for athletes to send feedback. They can do it via voice note. We transcribe everything. And then this information gets collected and also doesn't get lost because what we also built an AI on top. So it's an assistant for the coach that has access to all this information. And so actually the AI has access to workout data, to conversations because Algo replaces WhatsApp for coaches. And so it's really like conversations back and forth, workouts and feedback, all as context for the assistant. So the coach can chat with the assistant, get understanding about workouts in combination with the session feedback and things that were just not possible before. So
I love
that's
it.
really what we're trying to do. Yeah.
And I wanted to just back up a little elementary, but the qualitative, this is like the quality of the workout, or like we would probably call this subjective, I guess, right? Where it's like, how did you feel, or where did you do it, or who were you with? The things that aren't just like power or heart rate data, which would be like
Yeah.
quantitative, right? They're the counting, the quantities. That's how I remember it from my school days. So that's probably just important that like you're trying to build in some of these, like a richer picture or a quality of picture for the coach and for the athlete.
Yeah, it's just also because yeah, all the apps out there focus really on the quantitative part, right?
Mhm.
Um, and now also, with AI coming into the game, all apps in the future will use AI to some degree, whether it's training plan or just workflow optimizations, but it can really help to bring those qualitative data points visible to the coach. So the coach is more aware of, hey, 2 weeks ago, my athlete mentioned she has knee pain, right? Because you cannot remember those things from conversations, especially if you coach 20 athletes or more. And
Mhm.
what Bruna didn't mention is that we felt this problem ourselves, like me as an athlete with a coach, but also as a coach with my athletes. But then we also talked to lots of coaches before we started with the whole venture. We did a little market research, and we always had this question where we asked the coaches, "What is your biggest challenge?" And back then we didn't know what's the problem we're going to solve, but every single coach mentioned communication. So they did not mention, "Oh, I don't know how to uh, get
Calculate
to
with threshold,
yeah,
for example.
calculate threshold or setting the zones, or it was really, I don't know how my athletes feel. I struggle to keep up with communication. There's so much information coming from like the communication. So that was really striking to us because every single coach mentioned that, and that was a surprise for us.
Hmm. Interesting. Um, and I love, that there's going to be almost prompts because I often say like there's sort of like everything's like more of a circle. Sometimes we think about things directly, but coaches will say, "Oh, the kids, especially the kids, never comment." I would say adults are equally bad, but sometimes better because they're just older. But a lot of times I think athletes maybe try to comment, but then the coach doesn't give them anything back. So there isn't like that feedback on their feedback that then says, "Oh, I should comment. I got something of value back from the coach that would make me want to ever do that again," right? If it's just like, "Hey, I felt good today," and blah, 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 but then the coach says nothing or doesn't seemingly take any action, then it's hard for the athlete to do it again. You're not really rewarding that behavior. So, is there a way, like with your app, will it then sort of like help with that loop or that feedback loop in some way?
Yeah, for sure. What we essentially want to build is that the tool can help the coach to have more time in giving, being part of this loop and communicating with the athlete, also trading progress. How has the athlete been progressing? Because that's often something that coaches now are not able to do because they're just so overloaded with all of those data points, quantitative and qualitative, right? But we want to give the coaches more like better insights from this training so they have then the time to share those insights with the athletes, and then that's going to enhance this whole loop, this communication loop.
Yeah, maybe just to add to that, like we are not doing yet workout creation through Algo. We really focus on the communication side. So Algo
Hmm.
today sits on top of Training Peaks. But our vision is on during summer, we will launch workout creation, and this is going to be fully agentic. So we want the coach to be able to chat with the assistant to create the new workouts, maybe via voice, just describing what they want the new training to be, and then that will be pushed immediately to the athlete's calendar. And we see this as a really big way to save a lot of time. And then if you save all this time with today the drag and dropping and the adding information to the workout, etc., our vision is it will become much easier for the coach to have time to actually react to the little things that are happening midweek, the small comments that are coming in, the feedback. And maybe one other thing that I want to mention is one feature we already have rolled out is something that we call today's priorities. So that's basically on the home screen of the coach, the intelligent assistant, so the AI, already gives a list to the coach of all the things that should be priority for him or for her that day. And so it's the assistant reading through all the messages sent on the previous day, the workouts and the feedback. And so it also becomes much easier for the coach to know, oh, I should actually reply to this feedback because it was a negative one. And they don't need to like be literally on top of their phone just looking at every single feedback, because some probably doesn't really matter, but some are really important. So we're trying to find ways that this loop is more consistent also from the coach side.
I love that because I think, like, to me, this is the way that AI should be used in training, where it's helping the coach, but you're not taking away the coaching relationship.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah,
you're actually like using it to enhance the coaching relationship and actually have
exactly.
like deeper relationships between the coach and the athlete as far as like the communication goes. I love that. Um,
I wonder though. So I'll push back. I'll give you a hard question. We'll
oh,
see how this goes. But so if some of the, I would say older coaches, maybe I'm an older coach,
oh,
would be like nervous around AI, and they'd say like, okay, what like you're gonna steal all my workouts and my ideas, and then like eventually like there won't be. So how do you think about that? You're both coaches as well. So like, how do you think about AI in the future? I know it's sort of guessing, but like, what would you say if someone was like really nervous the second you mentioned AI?
Yeah, we get that a lot, this question, because we coaches think we use their workouts, their way of coaching to train the models and then replace them. Um, but that's really not what we're doing. And I see there's in a way two types of companies now coming up in the AI space. There's those AI coaches, right? That the AI is being used essentially to replace the coach and create a training plan, right? And you also have these digital twins that now are being built, where there is actually a digital twin of a coach, and then the digital twin is basically coaching and not the coach anymore. And then there's the other type of companies, which I would put Algo there, which is optimizing workflows for coaches, but not using AI in a way to, training a model. That's not what we're doing. So yeah, it's essentially a different way of how we use AI, rather
Yeah.
than not like we're not training a model, but we are just using AI to optimize the workflows of a coach.
Maybe I also want to add something that the data around workout creation, conversations, all private to the coach. So we don't have access to this information and we will not use it in any way. Our big stance as a company and where we want to be is empowering coaches with new technology. Also to be able to compete with the AI apps that take the coach out of the loop, because we see that these companies are, I mean, they raise a ton of money, they have amazing UX UI, and then I've had personally, I mean, I'm not the most expensive coach in a way, so I've been working with some friends, and there was somebody that reached out to me, and they were like, "Hey, like I think I'm gonna switch to Rana now because Rana gives them the sense that they have a progress report and that the app is so nice. So how do you compete with these apps if the apps that are given to coaches are like from the 90s, you know? So
Right.
that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think that's you have to be I try and be aware again as an older coach, I guess now, where it's like you can just like wish that we were still faxing training plans back and forth. But like the reality, like you say, is like all that stuff is there. And so you need to position yourself where you're not getting completely left behind, but you can also still, as you say, there are strengths to a human relationship, and those I think will be valuable. But if this other stuff can pull up and show you what your HRV is doing across the last 2 months quickly in a graph, quicker than I could try and like hash it out in a spreadsheet with my very poor coding skills. That's obviously like an advantage, right? When we can do things like this.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and offer you more time to actually do the important, like commenting back and stuff.
Yeah, and I do think I don't know, maybe AI is going to just take it all, but like there's just so much like error data and like just I don't want to say it's gut feeling, but just things like this person just started a new relationship and it's like I think like this is where like the human thing is like there's a relationship and they're launching an app and they got the knee pain and it's like it's a pretty messy thing. So it'll be interesting to
Yeah.
see how that all comes together
I think
for something that's just completely an AI.
I think now it's also, AI is just coming up, right? It's like the internet back in the day, and
Hmm.
everybody's so excited and engaging with an AI coach now seems very exciting, right? But I don't believe that in 10 years we're still super excited to talk to an AI, right? Because now it's a new thing. So what we believe, and I mean, we're humans, we need social interactions. So we believe that in the future people are going to crave this, especially in sports, right? You have a coach not only for the training plan but also for the support, the mental support, for exactly, giving you a certain tip, hey, try this out, this gut feeling that you're explaining. It's way beyond the training plan, and we really bet on that in the future rather than this excitement that we see now for AI coaches, because I'm pretty certain this will die down sooner than later. And there's still going to be a market for that at some point, right? People might still use it, but again, people need humans to, to work and have this connection. So that's what we're
Yeah.
betting on.
I have maybe one other hot take on this topic, which is
Ooh,
like
we
Sure.
love a hot take.
I think so for sure there will be a market for AI coaches. I mean, if somebody cannot afford a human coach and you need a training plan, that's a good solution, you know. It's
Yeah.
better than old school PDFs, no problem.
Yeah, I was gonna say PDF or like out of the magazine or something like that. That's just like your first 50K or
Hey,
whatever.
whoa, whoa,
Oh.
hey. As someone who's written the first 50K training plan article for women's running, I
Oh,
take
it's true.
offense to
It's
that.
coming for everyone.
Some are good. But well, my point is more like I think what is really gonna change in the coaching market is that I think in the past there have been coaches that only focus on creating a training plan. That's not gonna fly anymore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Nobody's gonna work with a coach that only creates a training plan and charges like 10 times more than an AI app.
Yeah.
So I think coaches will need to also kind of shift the way that they think, where the relationship is much more important, the communication, really the human touch. You cannot feel like you cannot be, I don't think athletes will be satisfied working with a human coach that don't give them this human feeling.
Yeah, you cannot hide behind a training plan that you give to your
No,
athletes
not
anymore.
anymore.
Yeah, I guess that's a great insight, right? Like there's I know of several where it's just like they take the same training plan and they copy it across 30 athletes and those are the training plans. And yeah, like that's just you're not gonna be you're not gonna beat a computer that's copying those faster than you are. And then also saying like, hey, you did a great job on that run today.
It's true. AI is fantastic for telling you how great you
Yeah.
are at everything.
Absolutely.
You did so good. You're amazing. You're wonderful. Yeah, it's a little sometimes I'm in like a like conversation with it. I'm just like, could you please just ah
And I guess that's again for I'll say the more professional coach. I'll stop calling myself old, but like someone who's been doing this their whole life, who's maybe nervous. like I think it is like this is in some ways going to push, I guess you could say, professionalization or taking this serious as like a job, in that like lots of jobs like you have to be involved in like actually engaging in the job, and not like you spend 5 minutes and copy it across 30 athletes blindly. So
Yeah.
maybe in a lot of ways, like you say, it's like weeding out people who are just sort of like not really doing it, right?
Yeah, the fake coaches are the ones that just are after making money, for sure. And it would, yeah, and there's definitely gonna be a shift in, like Bruna said, in how coaches will have to work. I think every industry is gonna shift with this AI wave. Jobs will change, like the internet changed jobs. I mean, we don't
Mhm.
have typewriters anymore, right? We're all
That's
using
right.
laptops now.
Or
And
the
I think,
faxing. I always go back to like the Joe Friel story. It's like so quaint to me of like just like he would mail a training plan, like he would design it by hand and like mail it and then fax it to athletes. And
yeah.
that's where we started, right? And it's like he probably like sometimes I don't know if he ever looks back and wishes it was like that, but that obviously was a change.
Yeah, and now with I also think the coaches that will succeed in the near futures are the ones that are already using AI, to improve their coaching and not being blind to it.
Mhm. And I think that maybe the other way we can look at this and just sort of talk around like what the app's going to do, but then also like problems that are being solved or potential or trying to be solved is like if we look at the popular apps in the coaching sphere, like there's an attempt to bring in subjective measures. So this might be like smiley faces after the workout or a rating of perceived exertion. I know Marco's app, which we love, the HRV for training. Part of the reason I like it is that it sort of does ask people, are you sore today? How did you sleep today? How was your stress today? How was your workout yesterday? A lot of these subjective or qualitative things that add some depth. But even still, it's hard to do anything with that once it comes into these other popular apps that we're not going to name a lot today. But how does Augo then so like is it similar to that in terms of like a bit of a questionnaire and the athlete sort of like probed on like are you sore today or something like that? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, right now we are limiting the feedback to the sessions themselves because we were thinking of adding a morning questionnaire as well, but we don't want to also overload
Yeah.
the users in the beginning. And so what we have now is so as a coach, you can choose the feedback session questions you want your athletes to fill out. So you can choose them yourselves, which is already a kind of a personalization there. And then the athlete, after every session they complete, they will get those exact session feedback questions that the coach selected to answer. So you can choose if you what questions you want to have, like how did you feel, for example, did you have any pains post session, how much carbs did you take in a session, also important data that should be tracked, or how did you feel about your performance today? Did you feel it was great? Did you feel it was average? Did you feel it was bad? And then this data is being collected in the app, and it also, for some of the questions, we also have a trend view. So you as an athlete and as a coach, you can then see the trend of those answers. So for example, how did you feel is one of those questions that we display in a trend view. So the coach and the athlete will be able to see in a trend view how they felt over time in the last week. So for you as a coach, it's very easy then to see, oh, my athlete is declining because he or she has been feeling bad the last week. And then you can immediately, you immediately know you need to talk to your athlete, right? Because something is not going well.
Yeah, but most importantly, this becomes context to the assistant of the coach. So the intelligent assistant, the AI, there's a little button you can talk to, and this assistant has context over all this feedback. So today in the other tools that you're talking about, maybe this gets collected, but it's really hard to use to see big picture, understand how does it compare, how does it relate to the training. And the assistant has access to the training data, the feedback data, and the conversations. So you can do analysis like, hey, Algo, pull me the last 5 times that Fabi did a 30-minute tempo session. What was her feedback like? What was her pace like? Do you see any comments around these sessions that are worth highlighting? And then you have, boom, like all this amazing context right there for you to make better decisions for planning her next block, for example.
Yeah, and that used like how long would that have taken?
Yeah, to
Yeah.
pull out, yeah, to like pull out of graphs and stuff and try and find things that are interesting or to remember where that workout was for that athlete.
I
Yeah.
think my only issue with this app is going to be we share an office and it's going to be real annoying if he's using it and just chatting away with Ago all the time. Might have to get like a soundproof booth for you or something.
Actually, it's funny you mentioned this. Fabi and I both hopped on the train of it's another app, but it's called Monologue. It's something that we basically just chat to our laptop for everything, because then it transcribes everything that we're doing, so we can be like 20 times faster. So like we don't write emails anymore. We don't write messages. We're just like pressing the button and talking, and everything is transcribed, and it's amazing.
Yeah, and but that's also where we see the future going. I believe in the future where we're not typing anymore. We're just gonna talk most of the time, and there's gonna be much more through voice. That's also something we already integrate a lot in Algo feedback with you do feedback with voice, but then it's being transcribed as well, and it's also accessible for the AI. And also in the chat, you can send voice messages, again, transcribed, accessible to the AI. So really making it very easy to communicate with the coach.
Hmm. Yeah, and I would say a lot of the busier like CEO types that I work with are big on that. So I suspect that like as the you get like needing to do more things in a day.
Well, think about how many of your athletes, like, yeah, would probably actually leave a voice note in Training Peaks if that was possible.
Yeah, I often wonder like if our Garmin's, our bike computers would just like at the end of the session be like, "How did it go today?" And then like you just like told the Garmin, and then the Garmin would just take the data. And I'm like, what a hardware solution that would be.
That
Uh,
would be amazing,
Yeah.
honestly. It's the most natural place to ask these questions. It's right there with you.
yeah. And why I'm always like, why doesn't it ask you like a perceived exertion or some of those questions at the end instead of telling you that you suck? Like compared to all your workouts, you suck because Garmin's so bad with like the things they say to you. And then they ask you like how much water, and I'm like, why? What a just how much water did I consume?
But it's
Where
like,
does that information
who can
go?
measure that?
I never get
It's
this question about the water.
yeah, like why was that the one that they were like, yeah, at the end of the workout we should ask them some questions. How much water did you consume? Like I get it, it's important, but I'm like, what if we added like, was this a did you feel good? Like yes, no?
Right.
But the thing about voice also that we see, or why we see it as interesting as well, is also a bit like the tonation, how your athlete is talking, right? Because you can say, "Oh, I felt great," but you're almost crying and your voice is like, shaking. So I think this is important for a coach also to get to know your athlete better, right? Because sometimes, I mean, I have never met my coach in person. She just knows me through video calls and some messages. So it's really helping the coach to paint a better picture of the athlete and who the person is.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, right? Because that's how cycling coaching, triathlon coaching has been like that. And then there's other sports that would never operate virtually like that or by fax like that. But then it's been like this for so long. It's such an interesting thing. So it's like, I guess because the engine, the fitness is so, you can do it and it's like a big part of the sport, but you do wonder how much we're missing by not having those things also in the decision making and the training plan. And yeah, I do think that it's a big area that we can improve on and get more performance.
Yeah, even carb intake, right? For my athletes, just having it there after the session, I see exactly how much carbs they took. I can ask my assistant for all the like last bike sessions, show me how much carbs they have been taking, and it's really striking. I realized that my athletes have not been taking enough, even though they told me before, but really having them putting it down in the feedback, seeing it, it's like, oh my God, I need to talk to them.
Sure. And then could you plot that over time, right? Like you could see that where it's like, yes, see how you like gradually increased your carbs and like your power has been increasing or something, right? And you haven't missed a session or whatever.
Exactly. And correlate that maybe to how did you feel, right? Oh, I felt horrible. Well, maybe it's because you haven't eaten enough. There's like all those correlations that can be done with again the quantitative data and then also the qualitative data. Even yeah, like you do a VO2 max session on the track, you feel it's the same session on the numbers, but putting the qualitative feedback on top you can feel amazing, you can feel horrendous, and that's such an important data points that are missing at the moment.
Yeah. But Peter, I like where your thoughts went with like creating the graph. That's something that we really want to do. So we will not build dashboards. This is not going to happen in Algo. The idea is, okay, maybe there will be one or two graphs that are key that Algo will show at the right time, at the right moment for the right athlete. Okay, maybe there's one or two. But the idea is that the coach can literally talk to the assistant and ask the assistant to build the graphs because the data is all there. AI already can do this. So we're like, why should we create these clunky dashboards that 99% of it is not really useful, whereas you can just prompt the graph. So that's the vision sometime this year.
Neat, neat. Yeah, I mean, and just I guess to drive this home, like it's just so often, I would say like I don't want I was pondering this podcast and I was like, and this question, and it's like I don't know that I can say like the best athletes, like the most successful athletes have like always that I've worked with have always been the most, you on top of using subjective data or qualitative data. They've been pretty good, but not they haven't been like the most. But I would say that the athletes that a lot of times these are like the journalers who may actually like use their voice thing like as they're cooling down from their workout, and they will include everything like their relationship, what's like way too much about what's going on work, and it's just sometimes I'm like, this is a lot. This is like a lot to go through. But I do think that those people, it's like, okay, they're like under a ton of stress. Like they have zero bandwidth for like more. And my feeling is that like those people, I can better customize their training for them, right? Like might not just push them quite so hard. I'll give them workouts that I know that they're gonna like it more enjoy than are gonna really grind on them and be challenging.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's something where, like, if I didn't have to completely read through, like, the paragraphs are nice, but like, if you could be a little more scientific or a little more, uh, what would be the word? Like, aggregate that a bit more, as like a
Exactly.
signal. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Like you shouldn't have to go for all the granular data as a coach, but really especially knowing, who you should focus on. You start from very top level, right? Or I should focus maybe the person that is feeling not good or has something that I really need to act upon. And then you can still go granular if you need to, but you shouldn't start in granular and then work your way through all of your athletes, but really start high level and then, having the option to go more granular. That's really where we see Algo go. And also, having a tool that is showing you the information in a proactive way rather than you as a coach being reactively always having to look for stuff like a detective, who has written something that could be bad. No, it should be the tool that tells you, hey, check out this athlete. He or she mentioned she's feeling bad in the session. Then, you know a bit where to go rather than being in the blind and having to look for
Yeah,
information yourself.
yeah. One of our strategic pillars at Algo is really separating signal from the noise. So we're really focused on how can we bring to light what is the information that is really important for the coach. Can we try to collect as much information as possible because we think that's valuable, but actually present it in a way that's useful. And that's the idea with the today's priorities thing that I already explained. And I will continue to push on that. So we're not overloading either coach or athlete. There's enough things calling your attention that don't really matter.
Okay. Well, maybe one more sort of like thing we can talk around then would be sort of pulling on that then. So sometimes I'll have people, this could be coaches or athletes, where, they don't necessarily want to say too much about the qualitative stuff because they don't want the coach to soften the training on them, right?
Oh, yeah.
But
Right.
it's tricky because I'm
I
talking
like
to
that too.
Fabi is exactly
I was gonna say I'm talking to three women here that are very good at doing a lot of things and probably can nail their workout. Whereas like my tolerance for like if there's disruption is less, I think. We'll say I get less done in a day. And so we might all journal, but then how do we know what's noise or signal when, you all can launch things and train for multiple sports and
For context, it's 8:54 and I'm currently thinking, well, if I run 8:20s for 13 miles, I can finish with 11 minutes before I need to get on the next podcast that I'm recording. Okay. Mission
Whereas I'm
55.
just gonna ride my bike for a few hours and then maybe have a coffee around one or two.
I
Good
love
timing for
But
that.
all that to say, how do you think the app will work? How will the app work? What's your feeling on this idea of like people having maybe different capacities for stress, but then also having different patterns of communication? I might just say like, great workout today, really nailed it. but then not say, I'm also in a big fight with Molly and there's like a
You would
whatever, right?
never.
So
Yeah.
how do we think about that?
Yeah, very, very good point. Today, we're not quite there yet. So what we've built is like on the priorities, for example, the assistant will highlight anything that relates to mentions of injury, of pain, of racing, rescheduling, the main topics that we think as coaches are important. But actually, the great thing about this technology, AI, is that it's very good at understanding context. And so the way that we think about developing algo is like we can leverage the assistant to learn the conversation patterns between coach and athlete, or for example, just from each user really. So you can think of an athlete, the agent could be reading all the conversations sent about that athlete and get an understanding of like where does that person usually sit with regards to how maybe how much they oscillate in their feedback, right? Or how negative or how positive. You can store this context and then leverage that to create better priority lists for that particular user. So that's certainly a way that's possible today. Even if you think about like if you've been using ChatGPT for a while, or Claude has this now, they have memory, right? Which is basically remembering key facts that you've shared.
Mhm.
So this kind of technology you can build where the LLM is basically remembering important things about that particular person, and we can prompt it in a way that it's remembering context around how they communicate and so on. So hopefully that made sense, but
Yeah, and
Yeah.
on top of that, I mean, you still have the coach, right, that knows the athlete, hopefully, and knowing, hey, this is my athlete who's always responding in this certain way. So again, combining the power of the human knowledge with the AI that gives the complete picture rather than taking
yeah,
one or the other.
it's
Yeah,
very
and maybe if it was like this seems irregular that, Molly has two book launches this week and you'd be like, I mean
Is
that's
that
I
irregular?
think this is every week for her. Just we'll keep training. Like it's fine. But then you can be like, she's also mentioned she was crying the entire workout, and it's like, okay, well maybe we talk about that a little bit. How are you seeing where
Yeah.
you're going?
But one thing also important to mention here is how we're using AI at the moment is the AI is not inferring knowledge for the coach. So, it's not telling you, hey, Molly has been doing a bike session, now she's doing a strength workout and she's also doing that. That's too much. No, that's not the role we see for the AI. It's just highlighting, hey, Molly has been doing this and that. And then you as a coach, you judge what that means.
yeah.
Like especially like also for example, when I'm peaking for my race, I'm very tired all the time, and that's also good, right? I need to be tired. So the AI will not tell you, oh my God, Fabienne is too tired, she needs to take a rest. No. It's the role of the coach to think about what that means in the context of the overall training.
I
Interesting.
love that.
Yeah, I like that. And there's almost like typical like normal ranges, same as like Marco Altini has talked a lot about with HRV. It's not that it's higher or lower, but it's like, and it's not yours versus mine. It's your bandwidth. And so similar for stress or the amount of comments or the amount of workouts or the amount of fatigue, if that's disrupted during your peak, like you say, Fabi, then that would be something that could be flagged. And then, as you say, the coach might say, that's what's supposed to be happening. I was hoping she was going to be telling me.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
indeed.
Excellent. Well, this has been great. I didn't expect to go so deep on AI. I don't know why I didn't think that, but I think I feel better about it and talking to you too.
I'm glad you feel
My,
better.
my existential dread and my subjective comments for my workout will be a little lower today, so I appreciate that. Uh, Now, if anyone, athletes or coaches, are curious about Augo, I know we're going to get this out after you've launched, so it is available. So where can they find out about Augo and sort of follow you too? Because you're very interested on Instagrams as well and great to follow. So where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on, well, in the pool or on the track, but also on Instagram at endurance_Fabi. And then they can find Algo at algo.training.
Right. And then website, it's algotraining.com. And obviously the app is available on the Google Play and App Store, so anybody can download and start using for free. And me, I am on Instagram at just Bruna Things.
I love your handle.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, you both, for talking with us today about Augo and just about your sort of training journey and also about, I guess, all things AI as well. So I think that was very interesting and we appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you. And we didn't even really get into like I'm just so excited to see like two women in endurance sport coaching and in the like AI and app space. I mean, talk about being like the only women in the room for like two things.
It's actually funny because just a little anecdote here. We were at the pitching event recently, and we were the only women pitching, and also the almost the only women in the whole room.
Like
So
100 people.
100 people. So it's
It's very crazy.
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I thought I was used to kind of like inequalities, like gender, yeah, kind of representation. I have a background in electrical engineering, and that was very male dominated. But honestly, in like fundraising, investors, I mean, 1 out of 15 that we talk to is a female. It's actually very sad.
Wild. Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about that on a Strong Girl Talk episode at some
Yeah.
point
Yeah,
soon too,
sure.
for sure. Because yeah, that's fascinating to me. But yeah, hopefully everyone can check out Augo. I'm so excited about this. Yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thank
Thank
you
you guys for
guys.
having us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Consummate Athlete podcast. If you want to hear more training, racing, and endurance sport advice, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and leave us a rating and review. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at consummateathlete.com for a weekly dose of inspiration and advice straight to your inbox.